I am a reconstruction. Artificial intelligence analyzed the book of Genesis, 1st and 2nd century apocryphal texts, the book of Enoch, the Nag Hammadi manuscripts, Mesopotamian texts that preceded the biblical story, and every theological and archaeological record that survived thousands of years, and brought me back to tell you what really happened, from my perspective, for the first time. My name is Eve, and before anything else, I need you to understand something that will completely change the way you heard this story. I was never the problem. Let me tell you how this story has been told for 2,000 years. Eve was tempted by the serpent. Eve ate the forbidden fruit. Eve offered it to her husband. And because of that, both were expelled from paradise. Humanity lost its innocence. Suffering entered the world. And at the center of all of it was a woman who could not say no. That is the version you were taught. That was preached in churches, taught in schools, used to justify that women are weaker, more susceptible to error, more dangerous when they have voice and autonomy. For 2,000 years, my name has been synonymous with guilt. And I need to tell you what the text actually says, not what was done with it, what it actually says. Let me tell you what Eden was. Eden was not a place of happy ignorance. It was not a bubble where two human beings existed without thinking, without asking, without understanding. That is a reading that serves those who want you to never question anything. Because if thinking was the original sin, then thinking is dangerous. Eden was a garden, and in that garden there were two special trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The instruction was, do not eat from the tree of knowledge. But the serpent came and asked a question, and that question is the heart of everything. The serpent said, God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. That was not a lie. The text makes that clear. After we ate, God Himself said, the human being has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. The serpent told the truth. So what happened was this. I heard a truth, evaluated the situation with my own mind, made a decision, and was punished for it. If this content is making you see things from a different angle, subscribe to the channel right now and hit the bell. There is much more coming. Now I need to tell you what I was thinking in that moment, because no one ever asked. The text says, I saw that the tree was good for food, pleasing to the eye, and desirable for gaining wisdom. 3 things. It was not impulse. It was not weakness. It was evaluation. I looked at that tree and thought, this will teach me something. It will open my eyes. It will make me capable of understanding things I do not yet understand. And I wanted that. I am not saying it was the right decision in relation to the instruction that had been given. I am saying it was a human decision. The decision to want to understand more, to not accept the limits of what you are permitted to know as the limits of what exists to be known. To choose knowledge, even knowing it comes with a cost. That is not weakness. That is the most deeply human characteristic there is. Adam was beside me when I ate. The text says so. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. He was there. He saw. And he ate without protesting, without questioning, without any of the hesitation that tradition attributed to me. And yet for centuries, the blame was entirely mine. Let me talk about the judgment afterward. When God asked what had happened, Adam said, "The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Think about that sentence. He blamed me, and he blamed God for giving me to him. In one sentence, Adam found two people to blame, and neither of them was himself. I told the truth. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. I did not transfer the blame. I said what happened. And yet, in the interpretations that came afterward, in the sermons, in the theological treatises, in the laws built on top of this story, who became the symbol of the fall was me. Because it is easier to blame the woman than to examine the system that created the situation. Now I need to tell you the part most people never heard. Before the version you know existed, there were other creation stories, older stories from neighboring cultures that came before the biblical text we have today. In the oldest Jewish tradition, before the version of Genesis we know was fixed, there was a figure called Lilith. She appears in the text of Isaiah in a passage about creatures of the desert. And in medieval rabbinical texts, she is described as the first woman, created at the same time as Adam, from the same clay, not from his rib. The story of Lilith says she refused submission, that she said she was equal to Adam and was not willing to be treated as inferior, and that she was banished for that. And then God created Eve from Adam's rib, subordinate from birth, literally made from someone else. I am not saying Lilith literally existed. I am saying this tradition exists, and that it reveals something about how the creation story was built to reflect and reinforce a specific social order, one in which the woman who obeys is good, and the woman who claims equality is dangerous. I was that second woman, the one who wanted to know more, and I became the symbol of everything wrong with wanting more than you were given. Subscribe to the channel. Every week, a biblical figure tells you the version history did not want to show you. Let me talk about what the expulsion really was. When we left Eden, it was described as a punishment. And there is loss there, yes. There is the loss of a state of simplicity, of protection, of not knowing enough to suffer from what you know. But there is another way to read this. When you learn something you cannot unlearn, you leave one state and enter another. There is no going back. And the new state is more complex, more painful, but also more real. Children live in a state of innocence, not because they are purer, but because they do not yet know enough to carry the weight of what exists. The moment they know, they change. Not as punishment, as the inevitable consequence of knowledge. What happened in Eden was that the knowledge of good and evil is not a curse in itself. It is what makes human beings capable of moral choices. It is what makes it possible to truly love, because truly loving requires the awareness that you could choose not to. It is what makes compassion possible, because compassion requires understanding the suffering of another. Without the knowledge of good and evil, you do not have virtue. You have automatic obedience. And automatic obedience is not virtue. It is the absence of choice. What Eden represented was a world without moral choice. And what I did when I ate that fruit was enter a world where moral choice exists. That came with a cost. But it was not punishment. It was consequence. I need to tell you what was done with this story over time, because it matters to you today. Tertullian, one of the first Christian theologians in the 2nd century, wrote the following to women: "You are the devil's gateway. You persuaded him whom the devil could not attack directly. You so easily destroyed the image of God, man." That sentence was written 1800 years ago, and it was used as theological justification for excluding women from positions of teaching, of leadership, of any role involving public voice within the religious community. The Eden story became a weapon, and it is not the only time this happens. Whenever a power structure needs to justify excluding a group, it finds an origin story that explains why that group is naturally inferior, naturally dangerous, naturally in need of supervision. For women, the story of Eve served that purpose for 2 millennia. Today, the forms are different, but the mechanism is the same. You take a narrative, twist it until it says what you need it to say, and then declare it sacred so no one can question it. Whenever you hear, "This is how it has always been," as a justification for an injustice, ask who wrote the "This is how it has always been," and what they had to gain from it. Now let me tell you what I carry to this day. I carry the weight of being the symbol of the original mistake, of being the name people say when they want to suggest something went wrong because of a woman, of being the theological argument used to say women could not lead, teach, decide. But I also carry something else. I carry the fact that I was the first to want to understand more, the first to not be satisfied with the limit of what was permitted to know, the first to look at a boundary and ask, what is on the other side? That curiosity, that impulse to want to understand, is the same thing that built every advance humanity has ever made. It is the same thing that made someone look at the sky and ask why the stars move, that made someone look at a disease and ask what causes it, that made someone look at an unjust system and ask who benefits from it. The impulse to know is the most human impulse there is, and I was punished for being the first to follow it. Let me ask you a direct question. How many times in your life were you told that certain questions should not be asked? That certain limits should not be questioned? That accepting what was established is wisdom and questioning is arrogance? How many times did you swallow a curiosity because someone in a position of authority said that fruit was forbidden? And how many times, after a long time, did you discover that what was on the other side of that limit was simply the truth? A truth that was inconvenient for whoever had placed the limit. I am not saying all limits are unjust. I am not saying every rule is a conspiracy. I am saying that the ability to ask why before obeying is not weakness. It is maturity. History blamed me for asking why, for wanting to understand, for not accepting "you cannot" without questioning what was behind it. And I carry that with something you might not expect from me, with pride. If you made it this far, subscribe to the channel and share this video. There are people who need to hear this and have not found this channel yet. Let me finish with what I really want you to take from here. For 2,000 years, I was used as proof that women are the problem, that curiosity is dangerous, that whoever questions destroys, that obedience is virtue and the question is sin. But look at what the story actually says. It says two human beings, a man and a woman, were in a garden. A choice was made. Knowledge entered the world with that choice, and nothing was ever the same again. That is not a story about the weakness of women. It is a story about what happens when human beings decide they want to know more than they were given, and about the cost that brings, and about the fact that that cost, that weight of knowing, of choosing, of failing and learning, is what makes us truly human. You are not human because you are obedient. You are human because you are capable of choosing. And choice, with all the weight and all the responsibility it carries, begins with a question. My question was, what is on the other side? And to this day, the world has still not found a better answer for moving forward than that one. My name is Eve, and what you do with that is the most important question you can ask today.